Want to make a game? Then let's get started. First of all, to make a game you need a game engine. Just like a real engine, you put fuel into it. Into a game engine you put code and instructions.
There are a number of game engines to choose from, but for today's project, we will be using Unity. Unity is one of the basic ones to start for a beginner, and it has a lot of capability. Many good games are made in Unity. So let's get started.
Let's make a new project. We will be using 2019.2.14f. We'll name our project game because that's what we want to make. Then it's going to be a 3D project and click on create. Look at that, so much to work with. So first of all, go into window, layouts, and set it to default because you want to follow my steps. There's nothing in our world right now. If you click over here, we can see that there's a camera and there's a light. You see, this camera will see anything that we want to show inside the game. It could be anything. If we will be playing an FPS, the player will see whatever the camera sees. If it's a third person, this camera will follow the player wherever it goes. So let's get started. First of all, we're going to see how to navigate in this space. We use our right mouse button to look around, our middle mouse button to move the camera, or you can just press Q, which will bring out the hand tool, which is really handy. As you can see, we can move our camera. And then if we press W, this will give us the move tool, which will help us move objects around in our world. And then if we press E, we will get the rotate tool, then R for the size. Let's start with adding something into our world. It's looking empty right now. Go into the space on the left hand side, right click over there, go into 3D objects, and let's make a plane. Oh, look at that, that's a big plane. And now we have put a plane into our world. It's looking kind of blank right now. It has no color, it's just white. So let's add some color. So down here in the assets, it's in assets folder, right click in the open space, then go into create, and then go into materials. We'll call this material ground. And then on the right hand side you can see inspector. The inspector, it will show the properties of anything you select. For example, if you select the main camera, you can see the transform, the camera's properties. And if you select light, you see transform, the position, rotation, and scale of the light, and the other properties of light, the color, the type, what type of light it is. Is it a spot, directional? We'll be using directional because it's a global light. It's a sunlight in our scene. And then finally our plane, our ground right here, which has transform and the mesh renderer, the mesh collider. So let's go back and select our ground material in the assets, and let's put our color to somewhat like orange and drag and drop it onto the plane. Now our plane is orange. Next we'll see what we can do with Unity. There are many things we can go around with. For example, you can create a cube. Just right click in the left hand side space, go into 3D objects and select a 3D cube. You can use the move tool to move the cube up, and then in the inspector menu we can see the properties of the cube. Right now if you play the game, you see the 3 buttons up here. We use it to run the game in the engine, of course. If you press the play button, you see nothing happens. Nothing. That's because we haven't told our game engine what we want to do with it. So first of all, let's reset these positions of both the cube and the plane to the world center. You can use your F key to
Focus on an object in our world.
Our cube doesn't do much right now because we haven't instructed anything to the cube to do. So if you want it to do something, there's a simple way. In the inspector menu, we can go into add components and select and search rigid body. And once you do that, select the rigid body. And in the rigid body, we can see that there's a mass to the cube, which is 1. We'll just keep it at 1 for the moment, and we have enabled use gravity. So now if we press play, the cube falls down. Let's add some more objects. Let's add a cylinder. Let's add rigid body to it. And let's add a sphere. Let's put the sphere like that over here. Yeah. Add rigid body to it. Now if you press play, whoa, see, that's pretty cool. But you are not here to run physics simulations, right? So let's try something new. Let's delete our cube and the sphere. So right now we only have the cube. Let's make a material for our cube. Go into the assets, then click on create, then go into materials. Let's name it the player. This is the material for the player, and let's go with some blue. I like that. Yes. And you see there is the position, rotation and scale in the transform. We can't do anything with that at the moment, but if we use code, we can change those values however we want. Okay, as a matter of fact, we can use code to change any value in the inspector menu. So let's do that. Right click in the assets, go into create, and create a C# script. Okay, once it's created, let's name it move. So we are going to use that to move our cube. Then open it up in Visual Studios, and once it opens up, you can see that there's already a bunch of code written in it. Alright, in the top we can see it's using the system collection and the Unity engine, and there's a class which is our move, that's our file name, and then we have two functions inside it, the start function and the update function. The start function over here is used to run anything that's inside it once at the first frame. Okay, and the update function, we use it to use it when we want to run the action every frame. As you remember, we added a rigid body component to our cube in the game engine. Let me show you. This is our cube. We added a rigid body component. To access it, we'll write public rigid body player underscore RB. We are going to name it player underscore RB. Then down in the update function, we are going to put a condition. If we get input get key down, so we are looking for the key space. So what this line does is that it checks if the user has pressed the space key, and if you presses the space key, what we are going to do is we are going to make the cube jump. So how are we going to do that? We're going to use our rigid body. So player underscore RB, then we're going to add force. If we are going to make our player jump, this force has to be in the direction Y. It has to be in the y-axis. So in the x-axis we will put 0, and then in y we're going to put jump force, and in z we're going to put 0, and our force mode you see the add force function takes in the vector 3 of the direction of the which will give the magnitude and direction of the force, and a force mode. In force mode we have acceleration, then we have force, then impulse, then velocity change. So we're going to use the impulse. As you can see, I've written jump force over here. It is a variable which we are going to use, so let's go back up. We are going to assign a new variable, a public float. It's going to be a public float variable named jump underscore force. And let's put it like 2f maybe, and of course go down here and put a semicolon. Remember to put semicolon at end of statements. It denotes the end of that statement. Let's save the file, go back into Unity. Then what we're going to do is select our cube and drag our script and drop it inside the inspector menu. And now we can see that there's a move script in our inspector menu, and it's asking for a rigid body. So what you can do is click on the circle here and select your object. Right now only our cube has the rigid body, so it's showing cube. Or what you can do is select your rigid body and drag it and drop it inside the slot for rigid body. Now if you play the game, you can see that the cube drops down, and when we press space it jumps just slight because the jump force is really low. Now if you put it to 10 and if you play, it's jumping a bit higher. As you can see, this jump force over here will decide how high the cube will jump. With that, we're going to end the video now, and in the next video we're going to see how to move our cube using our WASD keys. So thanks for watching. Drop a like, subscribe, and ring that notification button. We'll see you next time.